Welcome back to New Rockstars. I'm Erik Voss, and we need to talk about everything we have learned about Spider-Man 4. From Tom Holland initially being left out of the Avengers Doomsday cast announcement to new details from Sony at CinemaCon, I am going to break it all down for you. The official title for Spider-Man 4 is Spider-Man Brand New Day. On the surface, it's an appropriate title for a Spider-Man story that follows Spider-Man No Way Home, a film that ended resetting reality with Doctor Strange's memory wipe spell, causing everyone in this universe to forget that Spider-Man is a kid named Peter Parker and allowing Peter to reset his status quo from a Stark intern with overpowered tech to just a broke dude in a shoddy apartment with a DIY suit listening to police scanners and whipping around Manhattan. And using the word day in the title also links Brand New Day to Avengers Doomsday. But how connected will these two films be? Readers of the comics will also know that Brand New Day is the title of a 2008 storyline by Dan Slott, Mark Guggenheim, Bob Gale, and Zeb Wells, directly following the 2007 storyline One More Day by J. Michael Straczynski and Joe Quesada. In One More Day, Peter Parker is dealing with the fallout of unmasking himself during the events of the Civil War comic event. Kingpin had placed a hit on Peter, and an assassin's bullet ended up hitting Aunt May. So now, seeking to help Aunt May, Peter turns to a little girl who turns out to be a disguise of, Mephisto, who offers to fulfill Peter's wish to warp reality and to make his identity a secret once more, but at the price of Peter and Mary Jane's relationship. Peter agrees, reality warps, Aunt May is alive again, but Peter and MJ's relationship is gone. And we find out that the little girl is actually the daughter that Peter and Mary Jane would have had. And that brings us to Brand New Day, referring to the issues starting at The Amazing Spider-Man 546 in January 2008 and running 102 issues through 2010. And it refers to the general period after One More Day. Peter and MJ are no longer married, and his history has been altered so that the two were in a long-term relationship, but things ended on frosty terms. Some people in the general public vaguely remember Spider-Man unmasking himself during Civil War, but they do not remember the face underneath the mask. This period introduces a few new characters like Carly Cooper, a forensics expert, and her friend Lily Hollister, who's Harry Osborn's girlfriend. There's also the superhero Jackpot, originally Sarah Arrett, but the moniker is taken over by Alana Jobson. This is also generally the time in Spider-Man comics in which Mr. Negative, Martin Lee, has been making a name for himself. The Brand New Day period would shift into Spider-Man Big Time and Joe Quesada's sequel to One More Day called One Moment in Time. One Moment in Time refers to The Amazing Spider-Man 638 to 641 in 2010. Since One More Day was abbreviated as OMD, Quesada said that One Moment in Time could be called OMIT or OMIT as a reference to OMD omitting Peter and MJ's marriage from history. Since OMD was considered by fans to be a controversial retcon, OMIT was Quesada's attempt to fix things. We learned that Mary Jane was actually aware of Mephisto's deal with Peter and agreed to it on the condition that Mephisto would leave Peter alone forever afterward. The day of MJ and Peter's wedding is revisited as his Aunt May's near death, but now Peter saves her with CPR, and Kingpin instead sends an assassin after MJ's aunt Anna instead. In this revised history, Doctor Strange with Tony Stark and Reed Richards create together a psychic blind spot to make the world forget that Peter is Spider-Man, so that anytime people would see evidence of the connection, they would just fail to connect those dots. Mary Jane still decides, though, not to stay with Peter because she believes it's only a matter of time before he would be unmasked and her family would be in danger again. So this ends with Peter alone on the rooftop, realizing that the best person he's ever known set him free and that he can face anything in life, and today feels like a brand new day. So you can see how some of these storylines might be in Sony's mind by naming this fourth Spider-Man film Brand New Day, especially when it directly follows a similar memory wipe spell by Doctor Strange in No Way Home. It'll be a brand new day in the way that the period after One More Day was, with hopefully less of the backlash that One More Day had. Using day in the title also suggests that the next three films could incorporate day in their titles, the way that the previous trilogy used the word home. Tom Holland appeared during the CinemaCon panel to say that Spider-Man Brand New Day would be, quote, a fresh start, and that's all he said. And director Destin Daniel Cretton also told the crowd that the fourth movie would feature a new suit for Spider-Man. This fourth Spider-Man film is releasing on July 31st, 2026, nearly 3 months after Avengers Doomsday. Shang-Chi director Destin Daniel Cretton is directing this fourth MCU Spider-Man movie. He was previously attached to Avengers 5 when it was still known as Avengers The Kang Dynasty. Tom Holland revealed that the script for this movie was still in development in interviews in the past year, and that he and his girlfriend Zendaya read the script together, leading to some assumptions that the MCU MJ would be returning as well. And then in the past month, it was reported that Sadie Sink is joining the cast. Rumored roles at the time of the report included a young Jean Grey or Mary Jane Watson from another universe, but in a past video on New Rockstars, I made a strong case that Sony might be eyeing her as a Gwen Stacy. Scooper Daniel RPK posted an unconfirmed rumor about a casting call for this fourth Spider-Man movie, describing Sadie Sink's role as, quote, a sharp and free-spirited woman with a mysterious past, strong-willed, intelligent, and not easily intimidated. This Scooper also claimed a female villain, 30s to 50s, any ethnicity, a powerful and imposing figure seeking an actress with strong and commanding screen presence. Also listed is a new male role, a resourceful young man in his early 20s, and a new male role, 30s to 50s, any ethnicity, a no-nonsense authority figure who sees the world in black and white, loyal, determined, and willing to cross lines to maintain order. So Sadie Sink, if she's not an alternate universe Mary Jane or a Gwen Stacy, could be one of those women from the Brand New Day comic period. Carly Cooper, Lily Hollister, Jackpot. The early 20s male could be Harry Osborn. The 30s to 50s male role who sees the world in black and white could be Mr. Negative, or the new owner of the Daily Bugle during this period, Dexter Bennett, or the NYPD detective Vin Gonzalez, who hates Spider-Man. For what it's worth, Venom: The Last Dance repeatedly showed some mystery figure who was spying on Eddie Brock's movements without ever explaining who that guy was, and I always wondered if the plan was to introduce this character as Mr. Negative. I just know that Sony wants to get this guy in a movie somewhere. A reminder that Spider-Man No Way Home ended with Peter's multiversal counterparts, played by Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield, returning to their home universes, along with Willem Dafoe's Norman Osborn, Alfred Molina's Doc Ock, Jamie Foxx's Electro, Thomas Hayden Church's Sandman, and Rhys Ifans' The Lizard. Also, Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock Venom, as we saw in a post-credit scene that was actually picked back up in Venom: The Last Dance. And while I'm on this subject, Venom 3 included a very weird detail of showing the Mexican resort town in the 616 universe as a vibrant metropolis filled with high-rises, but when Eddie and Venom transported back to the universe of the Venom films, which was established in Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse as Earth 688, that universe's Mexican resort town was smaller and less developed. Why make them different at all? To this day, I have no idea why Sony made them different and included this detail, but I have always suspected that it might just have something to do with their plans for Spider-Man 4. Because remember, while these MCU Spider-Man movies are made in collaboration with Marvel Studios, they do, at the end of the day, remain Sony productions that Sony equally wants to use to boost their own cinematic brand, which is an important detail that I'll come back to later in this video. Also, while promoting the Paramount Plus Mobland series, Tom Hardy told the Discourse podcast that there were conversations about a Venom crossover with Tom Holland's Peter Parker, but that the studio politics got in the way. Hardy said, quote, we got close. We got as close as I could possibly imagine getting, apart from doing a film together, which I would have loved to have done because it just means so much fun. And for all the reasons that you explained ultimately in there, referring to the studio politics ultimately negating this possibility of a Venom Peter Parker crossover. Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. April is here, and that means that all of a sudden, every feed is an endless scroll of vacation photos, scenic hikes, and I guess everybody I know is into volleyball now. It's basically rocket fuel for feelings of inadequacy and social anxiety, the exact kind of stuff that therapy can help with. And BetterHelp makes starting therapy easy. Anxiety often peaks in the late springtime, but with BetterHelp, you can nip it in the bud. The majority of BetterHelp members seek support for anxiety, and 69% of members report improved anxiety symptoms after just 6 weeks of therapy. Just head to betterhelp.com/newrockstars, fill out a questionnaire, and you will match with a therapist in as little as a couple days. Easily switch therapists anytime at no extra cost. If it's not the right fit, they carefully make sure therapists on the platform are well qualified, and their customer support team is there to help you if you have any questions. With over 7,000 reviews and a 4.5 rating on Trustpilot, BetterHelp is a platform you can trust. Let BetterHelp help you rule your anxiety so that it doesn't rule you. Click the link in the description, scan the QR code, or go to betterhelp.com/newrockstars and get 10% off your first month of therapy. Now, Spider-Man No Way Home also included, of course, the death of Aunt May, and ended with Doctor Strange using the Runes of Kafkal memory wipe spell to make the universe forget that Peter Parker was Spider-Man. Not to forget that Spider-Man existed, but that the identity of the person under the mask they knew as Spider-Man was someone named Peter Parker. So now Peter could go back to being an anonymous vigilante in New York City with a new suit, a new apartment in Manhattan, and now in Daredevil Born Again, the mayor of New York, Wilson Fisk, is referencing him in speeches targeting vigilantes in the city. No Way Home had also shown that Matt Murdock represents represented Peter as a client, and while Matt might remember representing the kid who was Spider-Man, he probably would not remember the name of that client or that client's family, and presumably Murdoch's records would have been reality warped to erase any written version of Peter Parker being in existence. And last week, Marvel Studios announced the first round of cast members in Avengers Doomsday with 27 names that did not include Tom Holland. However, Marvel did confirm in a response to Robert Downey Jr. on Instagram that there was, quote, room for more, and the studio confirmed to Boris Kitt from The Hollywood Reporter that those 27 names were not the complete cast. This was probably the same source at the studio who initially told Boris Kitt that Tom Holland was, quote, likely to appear in Avengers Doomsday in an article on October 21st, 2024 about Tom Holland being cast in Christopher Nolan's Odyssey film. Some set photos of Tom Holland in the Odyssey are going around now, and it's believed that he's going to be playing Telemachus, son of Odysseus, who's being played by Matt Damon. But the fact that the Odyssey is in production right now is probably why Marvel Studios did not include Tom Holland in their initial batch of names. Those 27 names are probably the actors who will appear first on set for Avengers Doomsday, whose travel movements would be harder to hide in early April, while the ones who are not announced are the ones who are shooting their scenes later on in the production period, like Tom Holland probably, or actors whose contracts are still being finalized. Still, not seeing Tom Holland's name did for a moment open up a possibility that Spider-Man 4 could be completely disconnected from the crisis brewing in the multiverse right now. Avengers Doomsday is almost certain to destroy the 616 Earth via some incursion event, and then use pieces of that Earth to form Dr. Doom's Battleworld. So it's difficult for some to imagine how Spider-Man 4 could be set in New York after Doomsday, if Doomsday is going to wreck the world that New York is on. And it's also just kind of hard to imagine how Peter Parker could be left out of Doomsday. Avengers Doomsday is set to release on May 1st, 2026. Spider-Man 4 is set to release after Doomsday on July 31st, 2026. So this would suggest one of 4 scenarios. Scenario 1, Peter is not in Doomsday. Like Spider-Man 4 could retain the option to be a street-level story unaffected by the events of the multiverse, and then maybe after the events of Spider-Man 4, Peter could rejoin the other Marvel heroes when everyone gets taken down to Battleworld for Avengers Secret Wars. Scenario 2, Spider-Man 4 could be set before Doomsday. We could get an Avengers Doomsday with no Tom Holland Peter Parker, and then 3 months later, a Spider-Man 4 that takes place before and or during the events of Avengers Doomsday. Marvel Studios did a similar thing with Ant-Man and the Wasp in 2018. Avengers Infinity War came out in May 2018, and then in July 2018, Ant-Man and the Wasp was its own story set in San Francisco. The main events set 1 month before Thanos' snap, and then in the post-credit scene of Ant-Man and the Wasp, then we caught up Scott Lang and the Ant family to the exact moment of the snap. Spider-Man 4 could do something similar, like Peter would not be in Doomsday in his own storyline for Spider-Man 4, and then a post-credit scene where he meets Doctor Doom or sees the 616 universe experiencing some destructive incursion in the sky. Scenario 3, Peter Parker could cameo in Doomsday, but then leave the movie. Like we could get a scenario where Tom Holland, Peter Parker still appears in Avengers Doomsday, but only in like a first act conflict, and then the film could move on from Peter and maybe even move on to someplace else other than the Manhattan of the 616 universe, leaving that setting and that whole universe intact enough for Peter's storyline in Spider-Man 4. Like in this scenario, Avengers Doomsday would feature some kind of plot structure where Peter Parker is left in the MCU Manhattan long enough for an interesting movie to take place before that universe would be destroyed by an incursion. Like structurally, imagine the screen time the Guardians of the Galaxy got in Thor: Love and Thunder, and then they left the movie. Or imagine Avengers Infinity War if Peter Parker helped Tony Stark and Bruce Banner and Wong and Doctor Strange, but then stayed in New York when Tony and Strange left Earth on Ebony Maw's Q ship. Less exciting Avengers Doomsday because Spider-Man would only be like in the first part of it, but it is one way this could work. But then we have scenario 4. Spider-Man 4 could take place outside of the 616 universe, somewhere in the multiverse or in Battleworld. I mean, this is the multiverse saga, folks, a saga that will not end until Secret Wars concludes. So it's just possible that Avengers Doomsday could feature the Doomsday we expect, and the 616 Earth would be destroyed by an incursion, and then 3 months later, we see a Spider-Man 4 story that is set someplace that is not that same 616 Manhattan as it was. It could be a parallel universe in the Spider-Verse, or it could be a version of Manhattan that is in Battleworld. Believe me, folks, read Jonathan Hickman's 2015 Secret Wars event. Manhattan is a setting within Battleworld, and it's a very, very cool and interesting version of Manhattan. And there are really like multiple flavors of Manhattan that exist on that continent. Really, a potentially important piece of required reading is the Spider Island storyline. So in the 2011 Spider Island storyline, Jackal, Miles Warren, whom Peter had faced in the Clone Saga events, creates a viral serum that gives hundreds of people around New York Spider-Man-like powers. This includes Peter's new girlfriend, Carly Cooper. Now, the Jackal had orchestrated this with the Spider Queen, Adriana or Anna Soria, and things get kind of crazy. The story involves Venom, Flash Thompson, and Anti-Venom, Eddie Brock, as well as Reed Richards and Doc Ock, Mary Jane, and Spider-Clone Kane. It's one of the coolest Spider-Man stories. And remember what I said earlier hear about Sony loving to use these MCU Spider-Man movies to connect to their own cinematic brand? Well, in 2024's Kraven, yes, Kraven, the movie. This movie did set up Miles Warren, aka Jackal, as the source of the treatment that made Alexei the Rhino.
I found someone in New York, a biochemist, a Professor Miles Warren. He was developing a procedure to increase strength tenfold. I signed up on the spot.
It was also implied that that same Miles Warren was a doctor who turned Sergei's brother, Dmitri, into the chameleon shapeshifter, the form he takes in the final scene on London's Millennium Bridge.
I found a doctor in New York. A little unorthodox, I must admit. But he really helped me. I mean, changed me.
And I mentioned the Spider Island storyline because Spider Island returns as a location in the Secret Wars Warzone storyline, which was a 5-issue 2016 series that explored this part of Battleworld. In the Spider Island of Battleworld, the Spider Queen was victorious from the 2011 Spider Island storyline that resulted in everybody getting plagued by that virus to turn into a spider version of themselves. There's like a Spider Captain Marvel. There's a Spider Hulk with 8 huge arms. There's a Spider Captain America. We find our way into the story through the eyes of Agent Venom, and he teams up with Vision and Jessica Drew Spider-Woman. It's just one of many crazy settings in Battleworld, and you know what? I would be surprised if this 4th Spider-Man movie adapts this directly from the pages of the comics to the screens, but I just bring it up as an example of how we could have a version of New York City that's still contained within the broader continent of Battleworld. And if we are trying to reconcile the Daniel RPK rumors, the female villain, aged 30 to 50, could be that Spider Queen, and Sadie Sink's role could actually be MJ from another universe, or maybe even Carly Cooper. I personally still want Spider-Man 4 to be a street-level story that connects Peter to Mayor Fisk and Daredevil Matt Murdock, but I would support any sized role for Peter Parker in Avengers Doomsday that would allow that to happen. But I think a lot of fans might just misunderstand Secret Wars, what the multiverse means, and the scale of how Battleworld will look on a cinema screen to make each corner of it still feel street level. When people talk about the multiverse and things like multiverse fatigue, I think they think of like glowing portals or rifts in space, or a character having endless duplicates of themselves, or maybe just a huge cameo fest without any narrative consequences. But despite what Ryan Reynolds and Deadpool and Wolverine said about multiverse fatigue, the fact remains that the most successful MCU movies of this decade have featured multiverse elements. Spider-Man No Way Home, Deadpool and Wolverine, Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. And in all of those movies, people did not want less multiverse, they wanted more of it. So really, from Marvel Studios' perspective, multiverse doesn't equal glowing rifts in the sky and just stupid random cameos. It means Dreamcast face-to-face encounters that were once impossible and are most meaningful and cathartic for the viewers to see, and interesting settings and battlegrounds that were once impossible that would be the most awe-inspiring to see. It's a chance to do in live action what the early episodes of What If did with animation. It's not about the glowing rifts in the sky, it's about the characters and the people and what it means when they face each other. So I'm just saying that there is a way for Spider-Man 4 to be set in a Battleworld version of Manhattan, even without heightening things to a freakish Spider Island as it is in the comics, but rather by just leaving the MCU Manhattan as it is when it comes to its general appearance and its current population, and to make its connection to the rest of Battleworld only evident when you would pull the camera back far enough to see the borders of it. Like, you can still have a street level Spider-Man story that is set deep within Battleworld, and it doesn't feel like a Battleworld story unless the camera goes somewhere outside of the city. I understand that it might be tough for Sony to market a 4th Spider-Man movie that's set in a post-Doomsday Manhattan that's now in Battleworld without revealing what happens in Avengers Doomsday. That's assuming that marketing for the next Spider-Man movie has to begin before Avengers Doomsday releases. But I just think there are plenty of ways for them to edit teasers for a movie without showing a bunch of wide shots, you know? So the question I have for you is, do you need this 4th Spider-Man movie to be a street level story set in a 616 universe Manhattan that's unaffected by the events of Avengers Doomsday? Or could you see an authentic Spider-Man story that would be set within the Manhattan of Battleworld? Comment down below with your thoughts. Follow me at EA Voss and subscribe to all the channels in the new Rockstars network for breakdowns and news coverage of everything you love. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye.